Orrie Hoover. I think Orrie Hoover. I think of barrel jumping, and I remember seeing you up at Allen Park. Hold it. Because I remember you putting on exhibitions up at Allen Park when I was a kid. That was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago when I was a kid too.
How did Orrie Hoover get started in something that you could literally kill yourself?
I don't know. It was by accident. I started jumping park benches first.
Park benches?
And I had a couple of accidents with them. And that was things I want to forget about.
Well, I mean, somebody must have, was it on a dare? They said, Orrie Hoover, see if you can jump over something?
No, I just made up my mind I wanted to jump and see if I could jump them. So I jumped them. Then after that, a fellow by the name of George Croyer from Buffalo came into Jamestown. And he started putting on barrel jumping exhibitions. So I figured if he could do it, I could do it. I started, that's the way I got started.
Well, I saw a picture over here and a poster that talks about Allen Park, and there's George Croyer.
Yeah.
So he was sort of your mentor? Did he
Right.
teach? Yeah.
He didn't teach me, I just watched him.
Right.
Figured I'd do what he did.
Right.
And tried it. It worked.
Now you talk about jumping barrels. I mean, I remember the big, longer barrels, but in the picture out there they got kind of the shorter barrels. Explain what a barrel is.
The official jump barrel that we jumped for official are 22 inches in diameter.
Right.
And I jumped 15 of them.
Which was a record.
That was the world record.
Right.
I tied it. And the day after that I tied the world record, it was broken by a fellow by the name of Terry Brown. I was in Grossinger, up in the Catskills.
What year would that have been?
I think it was 46 or 47. I'm not quite sure. And he jumped and landed flat on his back. And I just could not do that to my body. I couldn't make myself do that.
So that was part of the technique, of course, was not only your sole goal was to get over the barrel.
Right.
And how you landed was, you weren't getting any points for landing.
I had to land on my feet or I wouldn't make the jump.
Right.
Unless it was an accident. But I mean, other than that, I landed on my feet. And they'd give you 3 practice jumps. And I jumped alongside of the barrels to make sure I could clear them. And then when I seen I could clear them, then I would take for the barrel.
How many chances did you get?
3.
3 chances.
3 chances. And then whatever your next jump was a jump that you qualified for.
Did you start off at in a normal, tell me about a competition.
That was competition.
That was it.
Yeah.
Would you start at, would you start at a number like 8 barrels and then work your way up, or?
No, they'd get up 10, 12 barrels when they started.
And then you could say, I want to jump it or wait or pass?
You'd get a practice to see if you want to jump. And if you didn't want to jump, then you didn't take it.
Okay.
But I seen I could jump the 15, and I went for it, and I made it.
What'd you feel like?
Felt like I was flying.
I bet.
It's 27 and a half feet. Quite a distance.
Now where did you do that? Where did that occur?
That was in Grossinger, up in the Catskills.
Now was that part of a national tournament, or what was the event?
That was it. It was world stuff. And the fellow that took me up is when they were talking about earlier was Charlie Jacobson. And he would coach me on a lot of stuff. He was a very, very, very good man, very nice man. A lot of fun.
Now how long did you competitively barrel jump?
3 years.
3 years? Did your body at some point say, wow, forget this?
No, I just give it up the competition part. And then I just went jumping exhibitions. Charlie's brother Elmer was president of Empire Structural Steel in Syracuse, and he got me out there. It was a summer show. It was the place was packed. It was in the Onondaga War Memorial in Syracuse, and it was quite a thing for me to get out and start jumping. It was in August, after being laid up all summer long, you know, and not being skating, then get out and start to skate. It was different, but it was fun. And he took me from there to a place called Drumlin. That's halfway between Rochester and Syracuse. And I put on an exhibition in there, in between the shows that I was doing in Syracuse. That was fun.
When did you stop doing exhibitions?
I think I was 52 years old when I quit.
God bless you.
But I didn't do no long distance jumps. I just did short ones.
Anybody ever take any movies of you?
A lot of them.
Are there?
And I've got one now that I'm trying to get somebody to put it on a videotape for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some hoops I made.
Mm-hmm.
They revolved. There was one set inside of the other one. One turned clockwise, the other one turned counterclockwise, and they looked like an egg beater. And to make it a little more difficult, they were on fire. Yeah, that was fun.
And you have that on film?
Oh, yes.
All right, we're talking about this afterwards. I bet we have a way that we can get it onto a VHS for you.
Good.
Is it on just an 8mm?
Yeah.
Talk about that'd be great. So what was your highlight? That nationals, the fifth of getting the world championship?
Right.
Yeah.
That was fun.
Were there lots of competitions, Orrie?
At the time, there was probably 25 fellas that was jumping.
Mm-hmm.
And now, since Grossinger's closed, there hasn't been any that I know of, any competition anywhere.
No.
But that was one beautiful place.
Now, aside from Grossinger's, where did you compete in? Was there events in Erie or Buffalo? Was there
No,
a circuit?
no. Just
Oh,
there.
just there.
Just there. And the rest of my skating was all exhibition.
Right. This is terrific.
It was fun.
Today, as you sit there, are you feeling any aches and pains from all of that?
No,
barrel
not
jumping?
really. Not really.
I should have asked all you people that.
I have knee replacement done,
Yeah.
but that was, I mean, my sisters had them done and she never jumped the barrel. My father, both knees were stiffened
Mhm.
and he never jumped the barrel, so I don't blame it on the barrel jumping.
I'm amazed.
How about park benches?
Yeah. Yeah, they got me.
Yeah, tell me about your worst fall. You must
Park bench.
Park bench?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the worst fall. That was rough. I don't talk about that anymore.
We talk about the successes.
That was the roughest one.
All right, you know, we've been talking about speed skates. Were yours for barrel jumping a different size? Were they longer?
Same thing.
Just a regular
Same identical
speed
skate. Only mine, the blades were not welded. Most speed skates are spot welded. Mine were riveted. Because the spot welds would break them right out.
Right.
You're landing pretty tough when you land.
Oh, yeah. Wow, this has been terrific.
I just
The
wish,
evil Knievel of Jamestown here.
I just wish we had had something like this back when I was a kid.
Does anybody have any questions for Orrie?
How far before you got to the first barrel, how many feet or yards did you have to build up speed?
Probably
Can you recall?
16 inches. Oh, build up speed?
Yeah, from the
Sometimes
start?
you'd make 2 laps.
2 laps, okay.
And you do the last one at a real whip.
Uh-huh.
And then you'd come into the barrel and jump.
I got a question.
Sure.
Orrie, did you jump through a hoop with fire around it?
Yeah.
I think you said that.
Right.
Was that at Roseland, Lakewood, or where was that?
I've done that
Highland
all
Park.
over. I've done it all over. Done it in Canada and all over in northern United States, I guess.
What about the time that you were jumping barrels and you were out doing an exhibition and you just happened to clip the top barrel and did a somersault? You want to tell them that?
Charlie Jacobson, he peeled me out for that. I was going to do a jump over a pyramid of barrels. I had 2 barrels and another barrel on top. It was on a small rink and it was down in Little Valley. And when I come into the barrel, I was going to jump and do a half turn and land backwards. And when I jumped, I hit the top barrel. And it was going to throw me on my back of my head. So I kicked my feet and I done a kip and I done a backflip. So I done a half turn and a backflip and landed on my feet. And everybody clapped when to see me do that jump again. Needless to say, Charlie come out and he really peeled me out good. And he told me, no more of that. I says, Charlie, look at the top barrel, I hit it. So he seen it was an accident, but it looked good.
Now that the pyramid is what the picture is that's out there on the.
Yeah.
What was why where the location of that picture? Can you explain anything about that?
Yeah, that was at Roseland Park.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just some old cardboard barrels we picked up. And that's what I was using to jump.
Did
But
you jump?
Go
ahead.
I was only 15 at the time.
Did you jump over anything that, other than park benches and barrels? Did
I
you?
jumped over an automobile. And they have that. And I have 3 different fellows I know have that. And I have been trying to get that picture so I can get a copy of it. But I jumped over an old 88, and that was in about 58, 59, somewhere around there.
We'll have to get that picture.
I'd love to have it. But that's it, when you're jumping, you can't get pictures unless somebody else takes them and gives them to you.
Right. No, that's right. It's a fabulous picture, the one that's out there, of you jumping the 3 barrels. Any other questions for Orrie? This is amazing. Just the park benches. Well, thank you. Thanks so much, Orrie.
Well, thank you.
Great. Great.
Now you can tell the story, John, about the Orrie Hoover and the park bench.
Well, it wasn't just one park bench. There was quite a few park benches. And this was usually at Roseland Park, or we done the park benches or on the lake or wherever was skating. But this particular time it was at Roseland Park. And the one thing I remember the most about Roseland Park is that on the end going out of town there was usually a mud hole. And you either skated around the mud hole or you went through it. And going through, the more you skated, the softer the ice would get. We was jumping park benches that night. And I think we had 4. And Orrie was around. And where the ice was soft, he kind of stumbled and went in. And instead of veering off, he tried to go over and he caught the top of the park bench. And of course, it was a little more stable than barrels. And it tripped him and he went over. And I can still see him picking up and looking for his teeth, the blood on the ice. And he says, I can still do that. And he got up and he was going to go around it. Just Orrie. That's all I can say. He never give up.
Yep.
And I know when he jumped in Little Valley, we was over there. We got pictures of that. And that was really a challenge, jumping there, because you had no place to go. It was just a small oval, and there was no way to pick up speed. You was, as I say, grinding the bar, crossing your feet all the time, and you didn't have room to run. But we done it all in fun.
Now, you got started in skating, John. How?
Well, we skated on the lake all the time whenever it was good skating. As far as I was concerned, my folks was concerned, if it was good ice skating on the lake, we done a lot of skate sailing. We had ice boats, and we'd skate across the lake to Lakewood a lot of times. And this was before they had snowmobiles. Because when the snowmobiles come, they spoil the ice skating on the lake, because they pack the snow down and it freezes there, and the water comes up, cracks, and the ice literally spoiled the ice boating too, because we done a lot of that. And I think I enjoyed the most of anything was just playing skate sailing.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember one time we come out, Paul Anderson used to be the head of Dahlstrom's, and these 5 boys come up when they moved into our neighborhood. And we was sailing there one day, beautiful ice, and I believe it was Frank. It was either Frank or Tim. We tack over towards Lakewood and come back. And Tim hadn't done it at all, but he'd watched the rest of us. And nobody ever thought to tell him how to stop. He come down, and there was willow brush on the shore there. He come in and he hung on to the sail. He tipped it up, and he was up in the brush about 4 feet off the ground and tore the heck out of the sail. He was more worried about the sail, and we was more worried about Tim. But those are the things on skate sailing. And on ice boating was, I got a son that runs snowmobile a lot. They can run them over open water quite a bit. And we had the habit of doing that with the ice boat. We got up to Bemis one time.
Ladies and gentlemen, in the snack bar area, enjoying your wine and munchies. In just 1 minute, we'll begin our special exhibition performance. 1 minute.
And done that, and in the spring hole just below where the boat launch is, and Bemis, where the old fish hatchery was, there was thin ice, and we'd been across it a couple of times, but this time we didn't make it. And we was out there in the lake, and somebody got excited and called the fire company. Of course, that was the last thing we wanted, but they come down, and they was going to take us off, and we wouldn't leave the ice boat unless they took that with us. But we got in trouble over that. But other than that, we could ice boat and skate. We skated to school a lot. And that was another thing, that we'd get out of our school in Bemis and there was a few girls in Chautauqua. They skated up there, and a lot of times it wouldn't be good skating on the lower end of the lake, but it would be on the upper, because that froze over later.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd skate to Chautauqua quite often.
Now, what was your principal interest? Was it hockey, speed
Ladies
skating?
and gentlemen, in the
It was-
snack bar area, if you can please make your way into the arena for our very special short exhibition performance. Please make your way to the arena area.
It was really speed skating, I guess, brought it on, and then later on, when we was in high school, we got to play in hockey.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we had a bunch of boys from Bemis, a bunch of boys from Lakewood.
Bunch of girls too, right?
And other girls are too, right, Dee? And we'd have some games, and shin pads was the corner of cardboard boxes, and the equipment was a stick and a puck, we call. And we had a lot of fun playing hockey and that. And I know in several cases we had a team in Bemis, and we had a team in Flavanna and Greenhurst, the Hendrickson boys, which you'll see in the speed skating. And I remember Howard's name, but he had 2 older brothers that done a lot of speed skating. Dick Sherman was, you might say, he had a summer cottage just below us on the lake. He was on the Olympic committee for years, and he would take us kids go to Lake Placid, all over. He treated us like kings. Met a lot of nice people, met a lot of nice ice rinks, and had a lot of fun speed skating. I know Bob Hansen got interested in it, and he took it up. I went off and started playing hockey, and played for National Chimley out of Buffalo, and in Erie. Johnny Alm come into it, Muddy Lombardo, and we had an awful lot of fun. And what I always laughed about it is these kids today, we'd drive for 2 hours, 2 hours and a half, get up into Ottawa, in Canada, Niagara, to play hockey. We'd be playing 11, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. But it was a thrill to do that, like for National Chimley. And we got paid highly for it. They'd feed us.
Feed you.
And many a time I've heard a guy say, well, I'd rather feed you than, I'd rather pay you wages than feed you. But that was the way it went. I know. And we had hockey at Roseland Park. Then Bill Fields lived right below us, run the Endress Ice in Cole and Jamestown. His dad did, Bill. And he made a place down there kind of in the back where we flooded it. And then about 3 years later, he made the first, I believe, artificial ice rink in this area. And I haven't looked up the history on it, but we had that for a number of years, and that was the place it was right in the back of the furniture factory. About 9 o'clock at night, after the 8 o'clock shift went off, they'd start burning sawdust. If you ever had a good coat or a sweater, that sawdust would come out of the furnace and they're out of the smokestack, burnt holes in them. Otherwise, I think that would have been a lot bigger because it was a real nice place. They had a good skating rink there and surface. We got to play in hockey then locally, the boys in Jamestown, and we went from there. After that closed, we played in Erie, and Johnny Alm put it up and made a rink, artificial rink. Totally no artificial freezing in it. It was just to the weather. Right. In the back of his barn and that. And about that time, my kids come along, and they learned to give the kids a place to skate in the back of that barn, and give John all the credit in the world. He maintained and worked for skating in the area, and it was all volunteer. We'd go down and John would add the equipment, or we'd make the equipment and keep the ice in shape so the kids could skate. And we really got as much enjoyment out of the kids skating and having a place to skate and play hockey. And then they had the rink, Roseland closed up. There was a lot of skating there, but as I said, the spring hole come in and kept getting worse every year because they made the rink bigger. And so they moved to Allen Park, and then they made artificial rink in Allen Park, right, which was a big step in the right direction. And we skated up there, and literally they didn't have much instructions, but I think that's when the figure skating really started blossoming out, and they started teaching dancing. If you can imagine me with racers trying to learn how to dance, but before long we all had figure skates.
That's right.
Yeah, but,
what's your highlight, John, as you reflect back on many years of doing many things with ice skating?
oh, what was the highlight? I believe in ice skating with skate sailing,
Right.
just plain sailing on Chautauqua Lake,
Right.
on skate sailing there, because you could literally, I know it used to be one of the things we go see how far we could go in the air, go as fast as you can, and when your feet start leaving the ice, you tip that sail up and see how far you could sail before you touch the ice again.
Oh, that's one of
And it was a thrill, and Harold Griffith,
Sure.
Red
Yep.
Garfield,
Right.
and they're the
How far could you go?
Good question.
How far did we go? Oh, probably 50 yards, maybe 60, maybe 70. Who knows how far you went? You never measured it. It just went and see if you couldn't do it a little farther the next time.
Right, right.
But sailing was fine. The landing was a little rough a few times, especially if you come to a crack or someplace. The one highlight of it was, and maybe Beatty will help me out on this, but they had races at Lakewood, and we went over to race, and it was great in the morning, 10, 11 o'clock. By the afternoon, they probably had 300 people on the ice out there around the rink. And all of a sudden, you could see the water start coming up, because with the weight of the people, the ice went down and the water come up.
Sure.
And we was running our races in 3 inches of water. Well, I don't know if anybody got all the way around the track, those things, because water would have a tendency of tripping you. That was one of the highlights. You probably remember some of them better than I do. But skating on the lake, there was a few places you didn't go. It was in creek mouths. You could get in the lake there in a hurry. And there was always the Lakewood sewer plant. The water was warmer where that come out. And things as far as hockey went, I believe it was when we was playing a national Chimney, and the people we met, I know Jimmy Schoenfield, practicing with him. He was just a kid coming out of Canada, come down there, and he showed us how to play hockey. It was really a pleasure. We met him and have known him for years. I lost track of him. I haven't seen him for about 3 years now. Last he was coaching for Pittsburgh Penguins.
Now with the Rangers.
Well, yeah, but I haven't
Oh,
seen him in 3 years. Yeah, he's down there. What he taught kids that he played against, like us Hicks, as we was called sometimes, and we didn't mind it a bit, and how to use the boards in the back of the net and things. It's where you put the puck.
Right.
You know, you just didn't bat it. But I just regretted that my kids didn't have the facilities we got here. Anything we can do to promote this, we've got to have it. It's a big thing.
We're probably keeping you away from watching something really neat out there, so we're going to draw closer to this, but thank you very, very much, John.
Well, I appreciate coming. We come down here 2 weeks ago Sunday, I believe it was, and they had the figure skaters here.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, it just reminds you of what, should I say, we tried to do. Yeah, and thank you for taking the time to do these, and we'll see if we can't get a lot more of this old timers, but I think we gotta look in the future more than we do with us.
Well, but it's
These
like
kids are our
well, you're absolutely
bread and
right.
butter.
But you got to know where you came from in order to appreciate what you've got.
Well,
So these kids will never appreciate the fact that there were the John Alms and the John Cheneys and all these people who skated on the lake, who had created the ice areas. I mean, this is a fantastic, nice piece.
there's one thing I'd like to bring out. I've done this. I've been with College Career Day with JCC ever since. I've missed 1 year since they started. It's 20-some years now, representing agriculture and talking with this. And I've told them for years down there, and I learned it when I was playing hockey in Buffalo, that you didn't smoke if you was going to skate, because you could go to Buffalo in the old auditorium up there. If you could skate 2 minutes, you was doing real well. The kids that smoked couldn't skate a minute and a half. And it just showed you what wind and what cigarettes would do for you. And I've stressed this all my life. And even with my own kids, if you smoke, you don't skate.
Can't do it.
It's a good, healthy exercise. I've talked too much.
You're
Sorry
great.
about it.
Oh, hey, this is so
You like her?
are plenty of good seats left over here to my left.
You're like a church service. Come on, guys.
Just don't stand in front of Greg's camera, that's the only thing. I think everybody in the building's been in front of Greg's camera. Nice you did do this, Greg. Well, as you'll notice from our gathering today and the conversation that's been going on amongst all of you and the excitement, this is another very exciting day here at the Jamestown Savings Bank Ice Arena. And thanks to the generosity of the Jamestown Center City Development Corporation and the Giving Foundation and the support of many other people in the community, yes, we are in this community that has this marvelous facility. And another step has been taken to make it so comfortable and so homey and so nice and pleasant, and that's what we're celebrating today. Thanks to the generosity of Ken and Lois Stickler and the members of the committee of which they have put together, you have a chance now to see up close the results of the work of the I guess we call it an historical committee for the activities here at the ice arena. And before we go into that, I would like to have you make some noise for me now as we say thank you to Mitch Elpa, a freshman at Jamestown High School. He was our young pianist here today. Thank you. To pick up some of the brochures about the programs that are coming. Keep attuned to the news media with a great announcement we had this weekend with the upcoming program in October, and it's just the flow is going to be like that constantly here at the ice arena. So make sure you pick up some of the information that's available at the desk or stop by anytime when you're in the downtown area and pick up some of that information to keep you abreast of what's happening here at the ice arena. If you have not yet had a tour of the arena, after we're finished with our little program here this afternoon, please sign out. And if you have something you'd like to share with the committee, some historical item or historical things that tells the story of ice skating in the Jamestown, Chautauqua County area, make that known so that the committee could be in touch with you. And leave your phone number there so Greg Peterson can call you and get you on tape. So they want very much that you would do that for us. Let me call your attention to my far left, on the very far wall. I would ask, is Bob Hansen here? Bob, if you would go up and stand very close to that picture. He's in the lead as he hugs the turn during the senior 880-yard race at the Great Lakes Speed Skating Championships. The 1946 event was only hosted in Jamestown. It's the only one they've ever had here. Hansen at 18 was one of the last members of the Fluvanna Speed Skating Club that trained and competed in the outdoor rink in Roseland Park. The oval was laid out at 8 laps to the mile. Local skaters generally competed at all distances. During his athletic career, Hansen, whose highest finish was 3rd in North America, raced against many Olympians, including Bob Hagenbeck of Chicago, shown here off Bob Hansen's left shoulder. Went on to skate in the Olympics. From left to right, the skaters are Hansen, Tony Caperi from Rochester, Hagenbeck, and Dick Dost of Cleveland, and George Croyer of Buffalo. Isn't that a beautiful picture? Bob will pose for pictures later. On Silver Lake near Pittsburgh, about 1924, were figure skater pioneers of that area who summered in Chautauqua County, sharing their infectious love of the sport. In honor of her parents, Murray, a skating judge and writer, and Hazel, a partner in recreation skating, Ken and Lois Stickler donated 5 skating pictures of which we enjoy here today and will forever in the lobby of the ice rink. Ken and Lois Stickler. Due to Chautauqua Lake froze solidly enough for safety, figure skating near its shores became an important part of the winter scene. Long before there were indoor rinks in the area, the village of Lakewood piped the music over a loudspeaker and enticed and entertained the local skaters. The Card Sisters were among the Friday and Saturday persons to attend the frozen surface in front of the Lakewood beach. Pictured here in 1953, Elaine Card, now Elaine Walsh of Georgia, received some sisterly help with her spiral from Irene Card, now Irene Andrews of Bust-Eye, New York. the next day, 16 barrels remains the modern benchmark. Hoover traveled to Grossinger's in the Catskills at the age 17 to begin his competitive career. He often practiced on Chautauqua Lake and on the open air rink at Roseland Park whenever he was able to get away with it. Jamestown city fathers feared that Hoover would fall and sue the municipality. Many of the barrel jumpers of the time landed on their backs or belly flop. That didn't appeal to Hoover, who recalled, "I had to land on my feet or I wouldn't jump." His repertoire included also jumping through fire hoops. Orrie Hoover is pictured here in an exhibition at Roseland Park on Jamestown's northwest side off Savannah Avenue about 1944. Orrie Hoover, Jr. Now, I understand there was somebody hidden in one of those barrels on that day to keep the barrels from rolling away, but I don't know if that's true or not. The goalie was Don Abramson, a local police officer, shown here with John Cheney, number 13. John Cheney's over there. John? The Canadian semi-pros. Several times when the Jamestown athletes traveled to Fort Erie for matches, they attempted to deploy and gain psychological advantage. According to John Alm, several of our players had false teeth. We'd have them take out their teeth and we'd send them first to scare the Canadian team into thinking that we were really, really good. This photo was taken at the Enders Ice Facility on Wood Avenue in Jamestown, a provider of ice for refrigeration. The Enders Company also used its freezing units to maintain a skating surface called Iceland Arena. When the rink closed, the local hockey activity moved to the slab of ice in a barn that was built by John Alm and Gina Spoyne. John Alm and our hockey program. How many girls skated in John Alm's barn? Let's hear it. Clap your hands. Thank you, John. Marion's also in that photo.
I gotta go put my pads on.
I'm shy about answering, though.
What caused you and Ken to do what you did here at the Jamestown Savings Bank Ice Skating Arena? How am I doing?
You're doing fine. Fine. Why, this was Ken's idea. And he thought about doing something that would sort of honor my mom and dad, who he had he was fond of them. And he thought it would be nice to do something in recognition of what they had done for skating. So that's what got it started. I also had a large full-page newspaper reproduction that he always wanted to use somehow. And it had me and 3 other girls from the skating club, and my mother and dad along the bottom of it, and he always wanted to use that, but I didn't go along with that idea. So it ended up that it was, you know, my mom and dad's picture that we settled on. So.
Talk to me. Who was your mom and dad?
Well, my mother and father were Murray and Hazel Fanistock, and they were married long ago, and the picture in the lobby is of them when they were first married. My dad loved to skate, so he got my mother involved in it, and they were just great people. My dad was crazy about automobiles because he came along at that time when the car was beginning to develop. And my mother was an artist, worked for Joseph Horn Company in Pittsburgh, and the two of them married, and of course they had me, and they had my sister, who also skated with us, and then much later they had my brother, who wasn't involved with skating because that was such an afterthought.
Did their parents get them involved in the skating at all? Because in that time period, there wasn't much skating going on, was there?
No, and I think my dad skated because he lived on the north side of Pittsburgh, and there was a pond there that, in fact, there were a number of ponds in Pittsburgh area, and we often skated at Highland Park at the pond there, or we skated down under a railroad bridge where there was often cinders on the pond. But my dad loved it so much, he would pick us up after school, and anybody that wanted to go with us. And we would go in his old Model A Ford, always a Ford, and he'd take us to a pond and we'd skate all afternoon. I used to be embarrassed because this was an old car that all my friends families had nicer cars, but this was the car we could put our skates on in the car, and we could climb in the car with blades, and it didn't matter. So that was, he just loved skating so much. He would sit and watch it on TV when that became popular. So.
And I read where he was a judge. How did he become a judge of skating events?
Well, back in the days when I first skated and the Pittsburgh Skating Club was formed, we had no judges, and they came from Cleveland to judge. And then finally, some of the members in Pittsburgh went to training and could judge. Now, they didn't judge the big time, the bigger tests, they could judge preliminaries in skating, dancing, but they weren't qualified, I don't think, to judge too much further.
So you're a member of the Pittsburgh Skating Club?
Mm-hmm.
And how long were you part of that?
Well, golly, probably, I can't remember for sure. I skated as a elementary school student and into high school, but then when college came along, I went to Carnegie Tech in Pittsburgh, but I just didn't have time to skate any longer. And I think it might have been about that time my dad, because of a heart problem, had to quit skating. So I would say, through my high school years.
Did you skate competitively?
No, skated to take tests, and I only got to the second test, which I failed once and had to do again. But that was those Cleveland judges.
I'm very much aware of that.
Not my dad, of course, he couldn't judge. Gee, now I've lost my train of thought. What was I saying? No, I didn't compete, actually. We didn't have competitions really among people in our club, but I would skate solos for events or something. That was it.
I also saw pictures in here of your mom and dad. It looks like pair skating.
Mm-hmm.
Or was it dance?
It would be dance. Uh-huh. We always had a time to do dances. First, we started off the 2-hour session with practice, and we had what we called patch sessions to work on our school figures, and then we had some free skating, but a lot of dance time, and that was always when people would pair up and do the foxtrot, the 10-step, 14-step, the waltz, Killian, all these different dances. So,
how did they pipe? It sounds a crazy question, but how did they pipe out the music? Did they have sound systems in that?
I guess we had somebody playing the music over on the side, a phonograph or something. I guess it was piped at that point. That rink in Pittsburgh, on public sessions, they would have a band play. So, but not for the skating, figure skating, because they couldn't afford it. So that was the music.
Was skating at the time that your mother and father were involved, was that was there a lot of access to the public, or was it a fairly defined group of folks who had access to skating? Do you recall?
Well, it was one of those things where there were a lot of people who probably could afford lessons, although I didn't take a lot of lessons because my parents insisted that I pay for them. And so maybe I'd get a 20-minute lesson once in a while. But I had a friend who had lots of lessons. Her father managed to keep her well dressed and well taught, and so she would often, know how to do a sit spin. So that's how I learned, by watching my friend and kind of falling on my seat many times. But her name was Isabel, and she was very kind about showing me how she would do things, So I kind of cheated on that. There were some people that probably just came and joined because they loved to skate. But it was more, back in the early days, it was more of a society thing in this skating club. But at public sessions, you might see people out in the center trying to do figure skating, But it wasn't, they weren't in, it was sort of a group, and that was it. Not like today.
I'm looking at a picture here, which I'll show later, but it says, "Duck shooting isn't what it used to be." A witness that shows your parents demonstrating their original skating figure they called shooting the duck. They begin figure skating and end in a skating pinwheel, almost sitting down. And there the cameraman stamped it here. Is that something they were proud of? Is that a signature piece for them?
No, shooting the duck was something everybody could do because it was just a matter of getting down on your haunches and going along. Of course, doing it the way they would do, holding hands and sort of forming a circle, was a little more special. But I'm sure my dad wrote that because that sounds like the way he would write it, playing it up, So.
What was, as you reflect back on your mom and dad and their ice skating, did they have certain favorites? Did they talk about certain skaters of which they felt emulated the sport?
Well, I think my dad did more because he kept up on it and read more about it, and because of this little skating magazine, you knew who the skaters were and you could keep up with it. As far as my mom, she just sort of went along with it because she was not as into it as he was. He was very avid about it. In fact, when he would be sitting in his den writing articles for whatever, cars and so forth, he would have skating music playing, like the waltz and the, and the different pieces that we would dance to. So he was really 100% into it.
Well, you have picked up that legacy in many forms. And one of them was, as you came back to Jamestown here, Ken, you were one of the early instigators. I noticed an article in the Reader's Forum of Thursday, February 1st, 1973, in which you encouraged skating. And also I see another article that more than $70,000 has been raised for the rink tennis. Was that an early love of Ken and yours, to get involved in a...
Well, yeah, when we came here, we were interested in being able to skate someplace, or I was. Ken, of course, he probably still has, old hockey skates that were, just terrible skates, and he really couldn't skate very well. But for my interest, he was anxious to support it, and always was. And so when we heard that they were going to do anything about skating here, why, we jumped on the bandwagon. So
Were you involved at all in the early days of the Jamestown Figure Skating Club?
that I didn't get involved in it, no, not really, because I think it was at the time I was still teaching at the high school, and I was busy enough. And I wasn't skating that much, and I sort of backed off. There were so many people that were excited that to do it, so I didn't jump into that.
I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. You were talking about, obviously, you grew up in Pittsburgh, went to Carnegie, and you also are a very gifted painter, like your mother. And one of your fellow classmates was a guy named Andy Warhol. And I always said, Lois, someday I'm going to ask you about that, and now's the time.
Okay.
Tell me about Andy Warhol.
Okay. Well, he was in my class at Carnegie, and our class was made up of all the fellas that came back from World War II, and so he and I and a few others were unusual in that we were just out of high school, and the rest were seasoned artists or art directors, and they came back with the GI Bill so they could be in school again. And so Andy and I struggled, and we both were failing. And actually, I understood later that Andy was actually released. I mean, he was dropped out of the school. But one of the professors insisted that he had talent, and so they reinstated him. But so later, in our junior year, by golly, Andy and I got Mrs. Porter's Prize for Progress, and we each were given $20 for that award.
Wow.
So that's my claim to fame, that I got that along with Andy Warhol. But he was a very quiet student, and he had very little money, so he didn't participate in some of the out-of-school, things. But he was, and he was always kind of back in the corner and doing his own thing. So when he was coming up to Jamestown, we heard about it and called to see if they wouldn't like to get together, his group.
Right.
And so that's when we had them to our house, now your house, and that was quite an occasion.
That.
Yeah.
And he continued not only to remember you, but you caught up with him later in New York City, didn't you?
Yes, he said next time we came to New York to be sure and come and see him. And we did go to his, it was not the factory in those days, it was after the factory, and he had new offices, and it was a little more upbeat. And so he offered us to have a Marilyn, one of his prints, and so we selected one that we still have and think it's kind of fun. So.
What's your impression of Andy Warhol? Now that you are, fellow classmate, joint prize winner with him, and you see the celebrity he's had, does this surprise you?
Well, it did if I thought about what he was like in college days. But when he left New York, or Pittsburgh, he went right to New York with some other of my classmates, and he just got right on the bandwagon. I mean, he had a talent, and he started with doing shoes for Mademoiselle magazine, and he just went on, and he just took advantage of all the situations, and I know people either hate him or love him, but he really made the most out. He showed our culture the way it was. I mean, from the soup cans to the repetition of the way commercialism is. And I remember he said to me, well, probably we're not going to see as much art, it's going to be more photography. And of course he was so right, and the multiplication of the photographs, so I'm not surprised, but he had a strange personality. but I still love to read. I have a whole stack of stuff about Andy because people have sent me articles that I've missed, you know, and I asked the people at the museum down in Pittsburgh, the Warhol Museum, if they needed any of this material, but they said no. They've got so much that they don't. Oh, there's a group that's coming by that just we're meeting in the other room. We're
Celebrity.
Yes.
Talking about Andy Warhol's classmate, that's right.
My 15 minutes of fame. Okay.
Is there a legacy that, back to your mother and dad again?
Yeah.
Is there a legacy that your mom and dad, through you, sort of left for the skating world that you could articulate?
Well, I just think that I was a lucky person to have parents that were so enthusiastic about such a sport. And of course, they were enthusiastic about a lot of things, you know. They were the kind of people, they took us to Kitchener, Canada one year to skate one summer, and the security at the border were asking questions and didn't believe my father when he said we were going up there to skate, to ice skate. And that was back in the days of Barbara Ann Scott was the big champion, and she was practicing in this rink. And of course, that kind of thing just made me so excited, you know. But as I say, my interest in art and in the art world and so forth kind of took me away from that skating. And so for Ken to do this down here and to have this rink is so exciting. I just think how lucky the kids are, and Jamestown is. So.
And we're lucky to have the Stricklers, who not only through this type of gift, but also through the Jamestown Savings Bank, really have taken a leadership role.
Yeah, they have. I'm proud of what they've done.
Yeah.
And they're good people, and to have Russ Dietrich the other evening, kind of emceeing the event, I thought, gee, who better could do it? So it's been a great experience. So.
Well, this has been a great experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg.
This is terrific.
Okay, well.
One of the nice things is this camera.
I sort of hope I didn't cause a shadow.
No.
But there again, I ended up getting my mom's.
Well, what?
Then all of a sudden, Monday, all these pictures are out on the table, and I thought, oh, where were?
Thank you. Is Ken picking you up, or did you drive up? Or?